The anime begins with some bullshit. In the near future, after a series of experiments, humanity was able to develop an incarnated engine that successfully resolved the world's energy crisis. In order to safeguard it and don't get invaded by the USA with a gift of democracy and freedom, they placed the engine on an artificial island called the Blue Island. The engine brought a new era of peace and technology to the world in which everything runs on energy received from the sky, and conflicts over natural resources are a thing of the past. On a neighboring island, a young and energetic girl named Akani dwells with her upbeat sister Momo and grandfather Kenjiro, who by the way, is the mastermind behind the creation of the engine. Akani's life was going fine, and she was happy to finally meet her friend Futaba after a long time, until a group of enigmatic entities, known as the Alones, emerged with the intent of annihilating the engine and sending humans back into the Dark Ages. As soon as the monster emerged, it began shooting down jets, destroying everything in its path. Kenjiro was secretly preparing for the very day, and in a last-ditch effort to save the engine, he started a program he had been working on for quite some time. As it turned out, 7 years ago, while testing the initial prototype, Kenjiro faced a being called the God of Timelines. It almost destroyed the initial prototype of the incarnated engine and warned him of the arrival of the Alones. The incident killed Akani's father and left her mother hospitalized ever since. From that moment, Kenjiro knew that sooner or later, the Alone would attack the engine. However, the program overloaded and caused a huge explosion. By the time the girls got to their home, they found Kenjiro lying on the floor unconscious. The blast waves had separated Kenjiro's consciousness from his body and put it into a stuffed toy that Akani had given to him. Kenjiro, now in the stuffed toy's body, enlists Akani with a unique key that contains the Vivid System, a program capable of supplying her with the power to destroy the Alone. If I were in Akani's place, I wouldn't dare touch the key after seeing what Kenjiro did to himself. Anyway, when Akani learned that the monster was heading to destroy the engine, she put Kenjiro's body and Momo in a bunker before hurrying away to save Futaba, who had just arrived at the airport. By the time she got to her, Akani found that Futaba's plane had crash-landed and was about to tumble out of sight. She jumped off to save her friend, and just when both girls were about to passionately kiss the floor, the key awakened Akani's abilities and began to transform her. With newfound powers, Akani quickly formed a gravity ball around Futaba and was able to save her. When the girls saw the forces desperately trying to stop the Alone, they agreed to help them. Just then, a bright light came off Akani's chest and a blue key appeared out of nowhere. The key incorporates Akani's life form, and as soon as Futaba accepts the key, she also begins to feel its hidden powers being awakened. By the time her transformation was complete, the monster was already blasting everything around. One of its energy beams almost hit Futaba, who was saved by Akani. She then summoned a weapon and shot it, causing some damage to the monster. However, the Alone quickly healed itself and shot several more energy beams towards them. The girls managed to dodge them, but unfortunately, some of the jets got caught off guard by the beams and were sent tumbling down. Futaba quickly saved the jets before they crashed into a ship. The Alone brutally and indiscriminately shot another energy blast towards humans, which was repelled by Futaba. She then summoned a giant war hammer and countered several of its attacks before powering up and flying towards the monster. At the same time, scientists noticed that the engine was diverting a massive amount of energy to something. Soon, the forces, along with the girls, began to attack the Alone from everywhere. At that instant, Futaba realized the monster's weak spot, and when she was about to attack it, the monster started pushing her back by launching several energy blasts at her. However, Akani, along with some fighter jets, launched a spear into the Alone's weakness and blasted it away, causing the monster to shut down and come to a halt. To completely destroy it, the girls had to combine their strengths by performing a docking operation. As soon as Futaba kissed Akani's forehead, the girls began to see each other's memories. However, they weren't able to combine their strengths, and Akani teased her grandfather, assuming that his device wasn't working properly. But Kenjiro was certain that Futaba was hiding something from Akani, thus preventing them from uniting. When Futaba learned about this, she apologized to keep some secrets from Akani. She forgave her, and the two finally were able to combine their strengths, upgrading their united souls. Just then, a mysterious girl shot an arrow towards the Alone, releasing a huge amount of energy. The monster started to power up and evolved into a more powerful version. The girls hurried to stop the giant monster, which shot several energy blasts at them, much more powerful than before. At that moment, the girls summoned their weapon, a much more powerful hammer than before, and turned the alone into a pancake. The next day, the girls learned that their school was destroyed in the recent monster attack and that they had been transferred to another school. The following day, while heading to the new school, Akani's hover scooter gave out, so she transformed and hurried away. By the time Akani arrived near the school, she got distracted by Seusa practicing her sword techniques at the beach and crash-landed. However, Seusa mistook her for an intruder and began attacking her. Thankfully, Akani managed to dodge her attacks before flying away, leaving Seusa morally degraded. Later that day, Akani got scolded by her teacher for being irresponsible and using her powers for daily purposes. She also found out about Seusa, who was the best kendo practitioner and unfortunately her classmate. After a while, when the teacher was introducing the girls to the classroom, Akani simply ignored Seusa, hoping that she'd forgotten their previous encounter. She took a seat behind her, and surprisingly, the girl who had reactivated the alone was also present in the classroom. During lunch break, Seusa followed Akani and confronted her. Instead of answering, Akani decided to run away. While chasing her, Seusa ended up bumping into Momo, making her head turn red like a tomato. She immediately apologized and took her to the hospital, where she learned that Momo is Akani's sister. The next day, Akani received Seusa's letter in her locker, so after school, she went to the beach to face her. They both lunged towards each other, and with a swift move, Seusa disarmed Akani. However, when she went for the final blow, Akani stopped her. Both girls were equally matched, but unfortunately, before they could find out who won the duel, an alone appeared out of nowhere. Seusa was obviously scared and worried for the other students, so Akani told her to run away while she and Futaba stayed behind to stop the monster. Before Seusa could understand anything, the girls had transformed and flown towards the monster. When Futaba tried her special move, the alone simply dodged her before throwing her away. It then shot several energy blasts towards Momo, but Seusa managed to save her in time. Seeing her intentions and pure heart, a green key formed out of Akani's chest, signifying Seusa as her next teammate. Just then, the mysterious girl from a distance shot an arrow towards the alone. It transformed and became larger and more powerful than before. With no time to waste, Akani and Seusa performed a docking move and combined their powers. The girls then summoned a huge sword and cut right through the alone, killing it instantly. Seusa promised to keep their identity a secret and fight alongside them against the alones. Somewhere, a girl was hacking all the classified data and keeping track of all the alones that the girls had defeated. The next day, the girls met to discuss their defensive capabilities as Seusa trained them to work as a team. On the other side, the Navy was searching for the remains of the alone, but so far, they hadn't found anything. By this time, Kenjiro got a hint of the hacker who broke into his computer. He suspected that the hacker was in Akani's class, and while searching for the hacker girl, Kenjiro ended up encountering a robot. Before things got out of hand, a ball smashed the window and broke the robot. The robot belonged to Himari, a self-centered girl who, instead of attending school, mostly remained at home and attended class through that robot. Realizing how rough the robot was, the girls went to Himawari's place after school. The first thing the girls noticed, or should I say felt, was how chilled her room was. Akani apologized to her and promised to pay for the robot's repairs. But Himawari was more interested in her stuffed toy, Kenjiro. When she suggested cutting open the toy, Akani was shocked to hear those words and refused to let her do such a thing. Eventually, Himawari returned the stuffed toy with Kenjiro finally taking a breath. The girls noticed a photo of an outflow plant that transmits incarnated energy all over the world. Since Himawari also liked tech and science, they planned to visit the plant, reluctantly taking Himawari along with them against her will. After a while, when the girls went out, Kenjiro began inspecting Himawari's computer and discovered that she was the hacker stealing classified information. Just then, on the other side, an alone appeared out of nowhere and began destroying the outflow plant. Since the plant was completely running on AI with no human intervention, there was no one present at the moment except Himawari, who could manually stop the plant's immense energy from destroying everything around its vicinity. The girls quickly transformed, and Akani took Himawari near the control room, promising to return for her after helping Futaba and Seusa dealing with the monster. The girls began attacking the monster with everything they had. However, this new Alone was much stronger than the ones they had faced earlier. By this time, Himari had reached the control room and managed to rewrite the program, shutting down the plant. However, the room collapsed on her and Himari got trapped inside it. She remembered her friend, whom she had helped discover the names of her cyberbullies, but when they confronted her, the girl simply betrayed Himari, telling the bullies that it was she who made the program. Since then, Himari had no friends and didn't trust anyone. She thought that Akani also lied to her and that she was going to die, but she brightened up when Akani returned to save her. After such a long time, Himari trusted someone, and thus a yellow key materialized, choosing her as their next teammate. Himari was reluctant to accept it, but Akani insisted, telling her to be their teammate. When she accepted the key, Himari began to transform. Meanwhile, the Alone shot multiple energy blasts towards the Blue Island, which were blocked by Himari. Just then, the same mysterious girl shot an arrow towards the Alone, giving it an immense power boost. The monster's energy level skyrocketed as it began to evolve. The girls fussed over it for a moment, but Himari already knew how to dock and combine her strength with Akani. They became one and got a huge power boost of their own. The Alone tried and failed to kill the girls, who blocked the attack without breaking a sweat. Later on, they activated a weapon called the Vivid Engine, charging it up beyond its limits. This new weapon shot a huge energy beam that erased the Alone out of existence. Himari later learned that Akani is the granddaughter of Professor Kenjiro, which came as a surprise to her. Suddenly, Kenjiro was in front of her, just not in the way she expected him to be, but she was still excited to meet her idol and talk about his theories. A few days passed since then, and Himari started to attend class regularly. The teacher announced the upcoming summer activities and told the students to form a group before the next Monday. Later, while having lunch, Akani spotted the mysterious girl who doesn't mingle with the other students. She went up to her and introduced herself, asking the girl to join their group. The girl introduced herself as Kiroki, but refused to join their group and left the scene. Back at the research lab, Professor Kenjiro spotted some unusual energy readings right before the Alone's transformation. He concluded that someone was interfering with the Alones, giving them a power boost. To know more about Kiroki, Akani started following her after school. She saw her saving a boy from an accident at a construction site, signifying Kiroki has a kind heart. When Kiroki got back to her home, she was tortured by a bird who warned her to focus on her mission. That night, she tried to sneak up to destroy the engine but quickly got surrounded by the security bots. She eventually destroyed the robots but ended up falling into the ocean. The next day, Akani found Kiroki passed out on the beach and brought her home. When she opened her eyes, Kiroki saw Akani alongside her, but she got worried when she didn't find her key. That key was her only way to bring back her world from destruction. It turned out the engine's vast energy obliterated Kiroki's world along with her parents, and since then her mission was to destroy the engine in order to recover her world. On the other side, Kenjiro was busy recovering last night's footage from one of the security bots, when all of a sudden, he got news of an Alone approaching them. Akani also got the news and promised Kiroki to return back soon, before hurrying away to stop the monster. Kiroki also sensed the Alone and got out of the room to power boost the monster, but passed out due to her injuries. When she regained consciousness, Kiroki saw the key which the girls had found after an extensive search on the seaside. She thanked Akani for retrieving the key before walking away. The next day, Akani, along with her sister, went to meet her mother at the hospital. After listening to her daughter, she suggested Akani to give Kiroki some time and that one day she would realize her good nature and become her friend. After that, the girls arrived at Jima Island and handed over their keys to the teacher for safety reasons. As it turned out, all of this was Kenjiro's plan to train the girls and strengthen their friendship. The girls got into swimsuits and began to discuss how Seusa helped Himari pick out a bikini, as none of her bikinis would fit Himari due to her giant plots. Later, they encountered Kiroki standing alone at the beach, who refused to talk to them before walking away once again. Soon after, the girls were given the task to remove trash from the beach. While picking up trash, Kiroki noticed a submarine in the distance, but before she could warn the others, she was quickly taken out by Kenjiro, who didn't want his secret to be revealed. After some time, a new Alone appeared out of nowhere in front of the girls and spoke to them about Kiroki's kidnapping. This was the first time an Alone had spoken. It warned the girls that if they wanted to see Kiroki alive, then they had to get on a boat and follow him to an island. Despite not having keys to transform, the girls got on a boat and arrived at the island. It turned out the Alone was nothing more than a holographic projection used by Kenjiro to lure the girls. While exploring the island, they encountered a robot that waged war against them. Seusa jumped towards it and with her sword techniques, easily defeated the robot. However, Himari fell into another trap and mistakenly released bugs trapped inside the robot, causing her and Seusa to get separated from the rest of the group. With the girls now separated, Kenjiro put his plan into the next phase. On the other side, Kiroki wakes up and finds herself trapped in a room. Meanwhile, the girls continued to search for Kiroki and faced multiple traps. Just when Akani and Futaba were about to get crushed by a boulder, Kiroki, with her identity hidden, saved them. She later saved Himari and Seusa from falling off the cliff and told them to leave the island before fleeing away. Seeing his plan failing in front of his eyes, Kenjiro got into a mecha robot and challenged the girls. As he rushed to attack them, Kiroki stepped in to protect the girls. Frustrated, Kenjiro prepared for a final attack, but before he could launch it, his mecha was taken out by Akani and the girls. They later returned to Jima Island and found Kiroki already there, so the girls thought that someone was pranking them. Due to constant fights with the Alones, Akani's grades were dropping, so the girls came up with an ingenious idea to study together on an upcoming settee. Futaba later went to invite Kiroki for the study session, to which she refused and walked away. She later found Seusa and Himari asking her the same thing, which made her lose her temper and she ran away. Confused, she decided not to attend school. However, the same blackbird made her remember her mission and forced her to continue attending school. Later, while searching for information about the engine, Kiroki came across an old pic of Kenjiro and Akani and learned about Kenjiro's involvement with the engine. She eventually arrived at Akani's house for a study session but with some other intentions. After a while, Kiroki sneaked out in hope of finding Kenjiro's lab. While inspecting around, she came across a room and a strange-looking fridge with Kenjiro's name on it that caught her attention. When she opened its doors, Kiroki found Kenjiro's body in it, giving her the shock of a lifetime. Thankfully, Seusa quickly made her pass out, and when she regained consciousness, the girls made up a story of her passing out in the kitchen. However, Kiroki was certain that she saw Kenjiro inside the fridge, and when she showed them the fridge, she found nothing inside. The girls had successfully hidden Kenjiro's body in another part of the house. As the girls were busy studying, a new type of Alone appeared in the city. It began sucking up electrical energy and released EMP, causing electrical devices to malfunction around it. Kiroki also sensed the Alone's arrival and soon after left. Akani and the girls received the notification of the Alone's attack and got ready to face it. When the monster arrived at the city center, several cannons began shooting at it, but so far, nothing worked as it easily wiped them out. Soon, the girls arrived and began attacking the monster from every angle. When Akani discovered that despite taking a lot of damage, the Alone was heading to destroy the engine, she and Himari combined their strength and got ready to blast the monster out of existence. At the same time, Kiroki arrived at the scene and tried boosting the Alone's power. When the girls shot their energy blast, just then, Kiroki also shot her arrow, causing a powerful explosion of light that sent the robot out of existence. When the girls saw no sign of the Alone, they began to think that the monster had died. However, that turned out to be their biggest mistake as Kiroki managed to shoot a piece of the Alone. When the girls began to celebrate, the rubble underneath them began to move. The Alone began upgrading and shot a single energy beam towards the girls. Akani tried to stop the attack, but the monster had sucked up all of her energy, causing her to pass out and crash down. She was immediately rushed to the hospital where she underwent surgery. Meanwhile, the Alone had reached the sky tower and formed a cocoon around itself to recover from the injuries of the previous battle. In its dormant state, the forces began shooting at the Alone, but they weren't even able to penetrate the monster's strong barrier. Back at the hospital, the girls received a briefing on the Alone's current state and made a plan to fight the monster accordingly. Kenjiro's analysis showed that the Alone would hatch within 24 hours, so they had to find a way to kill it before it hatched. With Akani now recovering, the girls weren't able to dock and combine their powers, so the Prime Minister came up with a plan to drop one of the most powerful bombs on the Alone. However, the bomb would level the whole city along with its inhabitants, so they proceeded to evacuate everyone as soon as possible. That night though, the girls remembered their moments with Akani and got ready for the upcoming fight with the monster. The next day, the girls along with the jets arrived at the location. At the same time, Kiroki shot an arrow to make the Alone hatch soon. With no time to waste, the girls flew towards the monster. As Futaba began attacking the monster, it opened a portal to shoot her down. This was the opportunity the girls were waiting for, so Himari quickly used her colliders to stop the portal from closing in, thus giving Seusa enough time to place a bomb inside the monster. However, the Alone used its tentacles to attack the girls, trapping Seusa and Himari inside the tower. Afterward, a fully evolved Alone emerged from the cocoon, and before it could kill Himari and Seusa, Futaba felt Akani's presence, giving her enough strength to rescue the girls. She dodged the monster's tentacles before hammering it down. Her attacks activated the bomb that Seusa had placed previously. The whole city lit up with a huge blast, as the girls had defeated the Alone and managed to save the city. They immediately returned to the hospital and were happy to see Akani had regained consciousness. A few days had passed since then, and with no sign of any new Alone, the girls went out shopping. There, Himari and Seusa were approached by one of the best modeling agencies. They asked Himari to pose for their upcoming magazine, to which she reluctantly agreed. After having a rough day, just when the girls sat for a moment of relief, they received a notification of a new type of Alone approaching Blue Island from space. With Himari and Seusa busy in a photo shoot, Akani and Futaba fused themselves and formed the Vivid Blue. They quickly scrambled to stop the monster from crashing into the island, which began shooting at them from everywhere. To aid the girls, Himari and Seusa also arrived at the location and created a force shield. Before Kiroki could shoot an arrow to boost the Alone's energy, Akani attacked it head-on, destroying it completely. That night though, after failing to achieve her goal once again, and now with only a handful of arrows remaining, Kiroki decided to shoot all of the remaining arrows at once at the next Alone that would appear. She later visited Akani and apologized for the other day when she left in the middle. Akani forgave her but told her that if she really wanted to make amends for that day, then she should have dinner with her, to which Kiroki agreed. Meanwhile, Himari and Kenjiro managed to track down the arrows' trajectories and were close to discovering the perpetrator. Back at home while having dinner, the mayonnaise ran out, so Akani tried to make some quickly but ended up covering herself and Kiroki in it. Afterward, they took a bath, and Kiroki went to sleep with Akani. The next day, Akani went out to deliver the newspapers, and by the time she returned, Kiroki had already left. She didn't even attend class that day, and the girls found her disappearance to be very strange. Later that day, an Alone appeared out of nowhere, and the girls quickly dispatched to stop it. Meanwhile, Kiroki shot an arrow that supercharged the monster. However, this time Kenjiro was already prepared for her, and sent an army of bots to hunt her down. They quickly surrounded Kiroki, stopping her from shooting further arrows. The girls easily defeated the Alone, and by the time Akani spotted the bots, Kiroki had nowhere to run. In a last-ditch effort to get away, Kiroki started attacking the bots, and just as the smoke cleared, Akani came face to face with Kiroki, thus finally learning her secret. Initially, Kiroki thought that Akani knew about her mission all this time, and was just befriending her to know her next move. However, before the girls could say anything, the ground forces tased Kiroki and took her away. They brought her to the confinement chamber for further interrogation, and during tests, they learned that Kiroki was an anomaly who shouldn't exist in their timeline. Akani and the girls tried to talk to Kiroki but were stopped as things were now out of their hands. Based on the research on Kiroki, Kenjiro came to the conclusion that the Alones were creatures of a parallel universe just like Kiroki, and that's one reason why they weren't able to detect them until they were close to the engine. Realizing how dangerous she was, many of the government officials were ready to eradicate her as soon as possible. However, the girls, on the other hand, wanted to free Kiroki from the headquarters and suited up for that. As they got near the headquarters, they appeared on radar, but their teacher turned a blind eye and let them pass by. As soon as they entered the facility, they were quickly chased by an army of security robots. In order to help Akani reach the room in which Kiroki was imprisoned, Futaba, Seusa, and Himari stayed behind. Within some time, Akani broke into the room. Despite a high force field around Kiroki's chamber, she desperately tried to free her, thus losing her energy with each blow she made. With her last remaining energy, Akani finally managed to break the chamber, but passed out in Kiroki's arms. Soon after, the girls along with Kenjiro also joined them, and were relieved to see both girls fine. By this time, the Black Bird also arrived at the scene and told them that it is just a representative of the beings who control timelines and parallel universes. She delivered their message to them, telling them that if they killed Kiroki, then the Alones would simply stop appearing in their world. However, Kenjiro refused to execute her and thought that Kiroki deserved a second chance. This angered the bird as it tried to grab Kiroki, but Akani came to her rescue. The bird began manipulating the energy field around them, causing everyone to fall to their knees. It took this as an opportunity and quickly swallowed Kiroki before transforming into a giant alone, the likes of which the girls had never seen before. The forces quickly got into action and began throwing everything they had at the monster, which did nothing more than provoke it further. The data suggested that the bird was also an alone, and since it's now upgraded with Kiroki's remaining arrows, it has now become exceptionally powerful. It didn't take long before the monster started to destroy the forces attacking it with multiple beams. The girls sensed Kiroki's energy signal inside the monster, signifying that she was still alive and trapped inside that thing. After destroying the forces, the monster ascended to destroy the engine. Akane spotted Kiroki's key lying on the ground and took it. On the other side, UDF shot all of the SGE bombs from their arsenal at the Alone, which did little to no damage. The monster quickly healed itself before continuing its journey towards the engine. Meanwhile, despite the odds against them, the girls were confident that they could defeat the monster. Within minutes, the Alone approached the engine and began siphoning its energy, causing a 50% reduction in energy output all over the world. Everything began to malfunction and crash down. By this time, the girls had arrived near the Alone, so it shot several energy beams towards them. With the engine now operating at 50%, the girls quickly had to work together, or else their suits would malfunction. Akani quickly combined her energy with Himari and shot a huge energy beam towards the Alone, causing some damage. Before the monster could regenerate itself, she once again united with Seusa, and began attacking the Alone with her sword. Afterward, Akani combined her remaining powers with Futaba, and finally broke the prison in which Kiroki was trapped. Her attack caused an opening, and as soon as her hand touched Kiroki's hand, her ki activated the docking system. Their final transformation began as both of them united into one being. While their mana surpassed that of the Alone, realizing its enemy was becoming stronger, the monster planned to destroy the whole planet along with itself. The girls quickly rose up to save everyone in the planet. Akani began gathering all of her energy. They then rushed towards the monster and landed a powerful punch that obliterated the Alone into pieces. As the girls began celebrating their victory, the higher entity that Kenjiro saw some 7 years ago appeared in front of everyone. It promised to restore Kiroki's world and created a door that led back to her world. The girls were happy that finally Kiroki could return to her parents, but they were also sad because this could be the last time they would see each other. So before leaving, Kiroki gave Akani her scarf as a token of her memories and their friendship. She promised to meet the girls one day once again before entering the door and finally going back to her world.